Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to this edition of Council Connections. My name is David Smith. I've been asked to be the interviewer today, and we have with us as our guest Ann Gordon, who, could you all hear that? Okay.
Pleasure to be here.
Ann is the chairperson and resident advisor to the Woodland Pond Benefit Fund. And we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But I told Ann that when I do these interviews, and I've done a couple, I like to start out by having the interviewee give us some little known facts about her upbringing and background and how the arc of her life and career brought her here. So tell us a little bit about yourself that we discussed outside. And I don't have any secret stuff to spill on you, but there's a couple of high points that I think the audience would like to hear.
I've been at Woodland Pond for the last 9.5 years. And
somehow they're not hearing it loudly.
okay. I've been here at Woodland Pond for the past 9.5 years. And it's almost the longest time I've ever lived anywhere. My husband and I like to have new houses and new towns, and we just moved a lot. He died about 17 years ago, and I have been living before that in Port Ewan, where I was very involved in the Democratic Party. I was the county town chair for 9 years. I had a bookstore along 9W in West Park. Before that, I was a librarian and archivist for the city of New York. My children don't live anywhere near here, but it's worthwhile making a trip to see them or when they come to see me.
So you had told me, and if we switch microphones, would that be better?
Right.
You had told me something interesting, I thought very interesting, about your childhood dream.
Oh, yes. Well, I grew up in Newport News, Virginia, and they had a wonderful big public library. And my dream was to be locked in the library overnight so that I could read all the books that the librarian wouldn't let me check out.
Uh-oh, we got something going on here.
So maybe that was what impelled me to go into library work and then later to have my own bookstore so I could read as long as I liked.
And so that dream has come true, to sleep in the library to make it come true.
Right.
You get to read all the books you want. You also told me that you, after your freshman year of college, you eloped.
I can't hear you.
You eloped.
Oh, yes, my husband and I eloped. Well, we had to because New York State required that you be 18 years old, and I was only 17. So we went to New Jersey.
And you had told me that he married you because you wanted to get out of Virginia, and you married him because he's rich.
Oh, he thought he was rich.
Let's see. You scooted through most of this stuff, but I want you to just spend just one more minute describing your meeting with a very famous American and what effect it had on you physically and emotionally.
Oh, who was that? Oh my goodness, yes. When we lived in on the west side in New York City, one Saturday afternoon, I was in Central Park with my 2 little boys, and we saw this crowd coming towards us. And in the front of the crowd was Robert Kennedy. This was, I guess, 1999, 2000. And he had just announced that he was running for the senatorship of New York State. And I went up to him to shake his hand, and I got the strangest feeling. It was as though he had an electric buzzer in his palm. I mean, I really got an electric shock from shaking his hand, and it just blew my mind. And I went home and I said to my husband, you must go and work in the Kennedy campaign. And sure enough, his union assigned him to Rochester, New York, to work in the Kennedy campaign. And I didn't see him again for 3 months. And Kennedy won, but but that was I wonder if he had that feeling with everyone who shook his hand. It really was amazing.
That was the story. So how did you find your way to Woodland Pond?
Oh, I had a lot of friends living here. And after my husband died, and I had been living in Port Ewan for about 8 years, they said, you must come to Woodland Pond. I was 75 years old then, and I said, I'm too busy. But by the time I was 76, I was no longer too busy, and I moved here.
And that was, as you said, how
It
many
was
years
in
ago?
2014, so it
Wow,
was
okay.
9 years.
But you're not what they call a pioneer, right? You were
No,
after
no,
that group.
no.
So how did you become involved with the benefit fund or its predecessor?
Well, I was on the council and volunteered to be liaison to something called the Woodland Pond Foundation, which when we were under the aegis of the Health Alliance, they had a foundation for Woodland Pond that was a subset of the Kingston Hospital Foundation and set up on the same groundwork. So they would take the money that we earned in the little market basket. All the earnings in the market basket went into the foundation. So it had a regular stream of very
Do
good
you folks
money.
know what the market
That was
basket
all
was?
before your time.
Oh,
Yeah. So they had $5,000 or $6,000 a month coming into this fund. So no fundraising had to be done. And this committee, which included a number of people from the Health Alliance and a number of residents, sat there and went through requests and suggestions on what to spend the money on. And among the things that they did at that time were put up the semi-permanent awnings that are outside the dining room and the pub. They put in a whole new range of bookcases in the library. They bought the mechanical assist at the pool for helping people in and out of the water, and the fire pit.
So what, just to go back for those of you who said you didn't know what the market basket was, in space on Diedrich's
Yeah.
was a little store, and it was run by residents and managed by residents, and what was in a profit
Oh, yes.
on, and they don't know what they were charging, not much of a markup, and it was only open 3 hours a week,
Yeah.
a few hours a week.
They
You know, people would do the inventory when the order in, me and some up the truck outside and bring the goods in, and but it's somewhere along the way, management decided they were full-time, designed the space, and the market basket went away. But it had a leftover amount of money, which
Yes. When we broke away from Health Alliance, we were informed that the foundation was not a legal entity since it was no longer connected to Kingston Hospital. It lost its tax exempt status, and the lawyers told us we would have to start from scratch and form our own foundation or fund. But there was $60,000 in the budget there. So they agreed to spend that money rewiring this room and improving the whole sound system here. And that's when that's where actually the 60,000 didn't quite cover it. And one of our residents generously made up the remaining amount. But so we spent all the money. We formed our benefit fund, as it was called, with Michelle's guidance, but then realized we needed to be tax exempt so that people could make donations. And I had had experience with the Community Foundation in my other life and thought they would be just the ones for us to affiliate with. They would provide us with the tax exempt status. They would also invest our money as part of their $1 million budget, that they have money from every tax exempt organization or nonprofit here in the Hudson Valley. They're a wonderful organization. So they helped us set it up as an affiliate of the Community Foundation. And Michelle and I are the resident, I just forgot the word, associates. In other words, I represent the residents. I was appointed by the board, and Michelle represents management, and the two of us are the administrators for the fund. We had a statement organizing the fund. The council passed it. It said we have 5 resident members, 2 management members, and a liaison with the council.
Could you
Now-
say who those members are?
Yeah. Me, Annette Johnston, Joan Hollister,
Both in,
Bill Stevens, and Rhea Stein, who just this week replaced long-term member Vicki Danskin, who was with us from the start. We're really going to miss her. So those are our 5 members. Bill Waltz is our liaison to the
also in the
council.
room.
And Sarah Leonard and Michelle are the management members of our committee. We meet once a month on Wednesdays, and meetings don't last very long. You know, anybody's willing to, wants to attend is very welcome.
So I understand that there are 3 uses for the fund, 3 streams through which you can spend money. Could you
Right.
go over them a little bit for the folks? there?
Well, with the council, when we were setting up the organizational documents, we decided to adopt 3 purposes for our fund.
That's what I meant to say.
And I have to say, if at any time it becomes necessary for us to add a 4th or a 5th, we can do that. But these are the ones we started with. The first was staff educational scholarships. We contribute a set amount of money every year to the new Woodland Pond Employees Scholarship Program. And this helps our employees upgrade their skills in order for them to rise in the organization, get better salaries, have a better career. And it's used heavily in the health center. And it's a wonderful, and I think as our fund continues to grow, we will up our contribution to the scholarship fund, because I think it's money that we at the residents are laying out to ensure our care when it's our turn to go to the health center. And it's really a wonderful thing for the employees as well. The second one was program development. While we are the beneficiaries of some really wonderful free entertainment, cultural events provided by local musicians and speakers, we decided it would be nice that we could extend the range of the entertainment provided here by having funds to pay some people who wouldn't come otherwise. And the first of those was to take place tomorrow, but Saturday, but unfortunately, one of the performers wasn't enabled to come. So it's going to be rescheduled. And that was the concert of Sephardic music. And we hope to enlarge that program and extend it in the years to come. The third part of one of our goals was development of the physical plant. And while we knew that our fund would never have the money to fund construction, we would have the money to pay for feasibility studies and one of them is in the works right now with the project of building a solarium for the health center, especially for skilled nursing. It'll enable the residents there to go out into a sun-filled room, to have somewhere to go when they leave their room that is a pleasant place to be rather than sitting in dark hallways. So the architect is already at work on these feasibility studies and a schematic of the plan. So we will be paying that architect for those. And I think that doing that enhances the whole community to know that, again, not only do we have skilled staff waiting for us there, but making it a more pleasant place. And we also hope to make some kind of modification to Garden View to alleviate the terrible lack of space for the residents there. The only place they have to sit is their dining room. There's no sitting room for them. They do have a wonderful garden. In addition to the solarium, the garden itself is going to be enlarged, and a landscape designer will be employed to do that. And I have a feeling we'll be getting the bill for that as well. But it's certainly worth spending the money on.
Are there any?
So those are our three goals. But as I say, if there turns out to be another goal that we can aspire to, we are perfectly willing to take it on.
Could you cite another or two of the projects funded past?
Another what?
Of the projects?
In the past, well, if you look at the piano, you'll
There she
see that
is.
it's sitting on a what they call a truck. It enables them to move the piano without weakening the legs. We paid for that. It was expensive. We also helped to pay for the purchase of the piano. Some of the other things we've done, after the sound system was put in 8 years ago, it needed repairs. And so this last year, we paid for the repairs to the sound system here. We're going to continue to support the scholarship fund. And as I said, we'd like to add to that amount that we give yearly.
So here's your favorite part.
Yes.
How does somebody make a contribution to the?
Well, could I just talk one
Oh, yeah.
second about
Yes, I'm sorry.
the problem that we have, which is new people don't know we exist. I was looking at the donor list for the last 6 or 7 years. We started off and we had tons of people giving $50, $100. That's all just dropped away. And now we have to really, we have to have something where people have to pay to attend, to raise money from the residents. It's just not in people's mind that this is something worthy of supporting, as it was before COVID. We shut down during COVID. This whole place was shut down. We didn't meet. We didn't have fundraising. And I have to say that because of the Community Foundation, our fund continued to grow like gangbusters, but it didn't grow in the awareness of the people living here. And now with such a large percentage of our population being new residents, we don't seem to be able to make an impact. Last year, we wrote a letter talking about the fund, included a copy of our brochure and put it in every cubby. We got maybe 3 donations from that. And it's so easy to make a donation because the Community Foundation provides us with these envelopes. You just have to fill it out and put your check in and mail it away. And it goes exactly to, it says, the Woodland Pond Benefit Fund. And it tells you how to make out your check, which has to be to the Community Foundation. Some of the ways that we've been raising money in the past included the fashion show. Well, unfortunately, once the dress retailer moved out of New Paltz, we no longer had a source for the clothes, and we no longer have the fashion show. In the first year, we started something called the 100 Club, and we wanted 100 people to give $100. That would have given us $10,000 in donations, and that was a big success. We almost met the goal there. Several people have given us matching funds. One came just before COVID. A resident offered to give us $20,000 if we could match it. And then all of a sudden, everything shut down. And she said, oh, just take the $20,000. So that was very generous. We also sell memorial benches. We've sold 10 or 12 of those since we've been in existence. But
These are the benches you see around camp
with the
plaques
on them. That's one of our projects. And of course, I'm sure you know Kaleidoscope. Well, that Kaleidoscope funds the benefit fund. The money that's raised from the raffles on the gift baskets and on the rental of tables goes directly to the benefit fund.
And the bake sale.
And
the bake sale also.
And the bake sale, my God, the bake sale made over $1,000 last year. Isn't that incredible? So those are ways we've been raising money. But the confusion with Rove and the fact that new members, new residents haven't really gotten a grasp of what we're really all about still remain a problem, and one that we try to solve in various ways. We've had any number of meetings where we invite people to come, enjoy refreshments, meet the people from the community foundation and learn what we're all about. And we usually get the same people who are already donors, so that doesn't get us very far. One year, we even specially invited all of the new residents, but it didn't really work. So despite the fact that you can hear me at almost every time the Residents Council has an event, which is very good of them.
A couple other sources that you said you were looking into or advertising that people could use their IRA distributions, for example.
Yes.
That you could do a donation in memory of or in honor of someone, living or dead. Well, in memory would be dead, of course. You could have fill out paperwork with management so that if you have some residual funds here when you depart one way or another, that some of that money could be left behind and donated to the fund.
Right.
There's a form for that my wife and I filled at one point.
And of course, there's your obituary. I mean, it's very hard to say to people, oh, you're dying. Have you ever thought of putting us in your obit? I mean, but really, the couple of times when we were in someone's obituary, we got contributions from friends and family and from residents who wanted to remember them in that way. And in one case, the surviving spouse matched all the money we had raised from the obituary. So it is a meaningful way to raise money. It's a sensitive subject, but I don't know how many of you have left instructions for your families as to what to do when you're not here. I know in my instructions, there's a line that says, in my obituary, please ask in lieu of flowers, donations to the Woodland Pond Benefit Fund. And it's easy enough to do if you think of it that way. As far as your IRA, we have already had one person do that, and it was very helpful and gladly received. They just asked that their entire donation come to us, and of course, they paid no taxes on it. And and there's no fee required for that. We have also received a very handsome gift of stock, which the Community Foundation sold for us, and that money is now in our account. Someone just had this stock sitting there and was sort of tidying up, and we were the beneficiary of that. I'm surprised, frankly, that we don't get more gifts in memory of a resident who dies. When someone died from the Pondaliers, I wanted to get up and say, don't you want to remember him by giving a gift to the benefit fund? And I was discouraged from doing that.
You're
But-
not discouraged today from saying that?
Yes, yes. And we've gotten a number of donations from residents who give money in gratitude to someone here who has made their life better, more enjoyable in some way, either a staff person or another resident. And then I have to tell you about the biggest gift of all, which is after COVID, Michelle Gramolia received an award from the New York Insurance Company given to directors of places like ours who had provided outstanding leadership during the COVID epidemic. Michelle won $25,000, which she donated to the benefit fund.
Did
So,
everybody know that? I didn't know that. Did you
Yes.
folks know that?
yeah,
That was not publicized much,
No.
was it?
well,
Wow.
I'm telling. So, you could honor a living person, you could honor a person who's passed on. You could just give it because you feel like it. There are just so many ways and reasons to give. And now I'll just tell you how much we've raised over the years. We started off with $5,000, and that was in 2017. By 2018, we had $19,000. By 2020, we had, where is it? $98,000. The next was, next year, we didn't do too well. That was COVID. We had 110,000. Today, we have 131,000 in our fund, which the Community Foundation tells me to grow that much in just 6 or 7 years is really outstanding. And I keep saying, but it could be more.
More.
It should be more because we have so many wonderful ways to spend it.
And isn't it a requirement of the way the fund was set up that we have to spend so much annually? a
Yes,
certain
even
amount?
when we were down at $98,000, we had to spend 4% of the fund, which didn't amount to very much, but it was a legal requirement that you have to spend that to show that you are in fact benefiting somebody with your fund. But we did manage to spend it. But now we don't, the 4% doesn't even apply to us anymore because we are spending the money and on very sensible things. Oh.
Things seems to be going off and on me. Her quote is, I spent all my life raising money for one cause or another. And she spent a fair amount of her time here raising money for this cause. Before I open it for questions, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to get to?
Pardon?
Did you cover everything you wanted to say?
Yes, yes.
Are you ready for a couple questions?
Yeah.
Do we have any questions? No? Oh, of course, we have a
Oh,
couple.
God.
I'll get Halima first, ladies first.
True. That's true because he talks a lot. Okay. One question I have is about the scholarships. If someone accepts a scholarship from the fund to become a CNA, what is the requirement that they have to remain at Woodland Pond for a certain amount of time after finishing their training?
We rely on human resources because there is a fund in existence. We contribute to that fund and they're responsible for all of the requirements. And there is a requirement of the amount of time that you must remain an employee after accepting the money. And it varies from position to positions. But one of the nurses just got her RN. with that scholarship money, and there are constant uses of it going from CNA to LPN and so forth.
Thank you. The other question I have is really an observation. I work with new residents all the time, and it's a very difficult time to present them with the information they need.
Yeah.
And then talk about the different funds that could use their monies. So we don't do that. The mentors usually mention Rove and maybe the benefit fund down the road. But if we inundate them with all these funds, it's overwhelming given the outlay that somebody has when they move in.
Oh, I agree. And that's, it's a problem, but it's certainly, we don't depend on the Welcome Committee to solve it that way.
And the other question I had, did you ever develop a questionnaire of those three categories listing what would you like to see money spent for? A, architectural studies, B, concerts, C, all the funds that, all the choices that you have to see where people's interests lie.
No, we never did that. But I do remember when we had the foundation, we had a huge study. We had focus groups and surveys. The focus groups came together and everybody spoke, and we ended up with this list of about 40 items. And then we ticked off which one got the most votes. And the one that got the most votes was a bocce court. Yes. So I don't think people think in terms of these items in the abstract. I think they think in terms of their own daily lives and their own needs. And that really isn't something that I think can be reflected in our goals. We have to look at the needs of the entire establishment.
Yeah, I mean, you asked already the question about the education fund. So you are basically contributing to the existing Woodland Pond education effort.
Yes.
You don't,
Yes.
so it's
Yes.
basically a contribution to that. What kind of percentage of the three categories are being spent nowadays? From, you say you have now about 150,000 or something? 130,000.
Yeah.
So typically, I understand that there is a requirement that 4% has to be spent.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea what is it indeed spent?
It depends on the year and what we're spending money on. But this year, just the architect's fees alone will more than, it'll be between $10,000 and $15,000. That's the biggest amount of money we've ever spent. We soft pedaled spending until we passed $100,000 because that covered the contribution to the scholarship fund. But once we passed 100 and it began to really grow, then we began to take on larger and larger projects, like the renovation of the sound system here. That was almost $12,000. So you can see we're spending meaningful money now.
And the other question is, what are your ideas? How can you increase the participation other than, sitting one-to-one to each?
Well, I'm not going to hold any more wine and chocolate parties. But whatever we do, I've just discovered a wonderful new friend, and that's Sawyer Savings Bank. For the last wine and chocolate party we had, they covered the entire expense and then gave us a check for $1,000. So I'm looking at more ways to involve not only Sawyer, but other vendors who do business with Woodland Pond. It seems to me that's really appropriate for us to approach them and ask for their support. This is going to require a lot of work. And Cameron is the wonderful person to work with on this.
We have one other question here. Bring the mic to you, Ina.
As far as education goes, do we pay or is there a process for say that the children of employees, if they go to school, would we pay and then they come to work for us since we need staff?
You'd have to ask Bridget Blum that question, because I don't administer the employees fund, educational scholarship.
And you don't put restrictions on it either, right?
Yeah, well, I read their form, but I didn't see anything in there about funding children to become our employees. It's an interesting suggestion, though.
I have another question from one of your committee members.
Yeah.
I worked with the state university, and the whole state had, all the universities would allow the students to attend the employees institution. I think free as far as tuition.
Yeah.
Well, I'm roaming about with the mic. Anybody else? Okay, one more from Halim.
Talking about the feasibility study that the
Yes.
architect is doing for skilled, if the benefit fund didn't provide that X amount of dollars, would it get done through funds that Woodland Pond has for capital improvement?
I'm sure it would, but this is just one way to make it felt how important we feel the solarium is, and to give the residents a chance to have a little input in this. There are going to be all kinds of committees set up once this project becomes a total fact. And residents will be on that committee, and we've just given you a little skin in the game.
On that point, when Michelle spoke to the council this morning, I was in the room, and she emphasized that the various committees out there would all have representatives from the various stakeholders here, particularly residents, and just
Yeah.
should mention residents would be involved in all the committee work. Anybody else? Okay.
I just
no,
want to
go
close
ahead.
by saying at dinner last night, someone at my table turned to me and said, "What percentage of the residents donate to the benefit fund?" And that really took me aback, because I've never done that math. And I thought about it and I said, 25% maybe. And then it discovered she was talking about Rove.
Oh.
But there you go. But that did make me think, what percentage of our residents do contribute to this fund? And I wish it were more.
Well, with our viewing audience out there, I'm sure you'll have to hire a part-timer just to process the paperwork that'll be coming in for you. So thank you very much, Ann. Appreciate this. This is going to be on
Right.
YouTube.
Thanks for the opportunity, Dave.